Well, good afternoon. I'm Matt Coyle, and this is Ying Coyle. We're both real estate agents in Massachusetts for the real estate firm Cameron Real Estate Group. And we're here today with Jane Innamorati. She is a real estate attorney in Massachusetts. Hello, Jane. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon, Matt and Ying.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me on your show.
Well, thank you for attending. We appreciate it. Obviously, for our audience, this is a very difficult time in Massachusetts and the United States, given the current virus and the shutdown and what it's having on the economic impact it's having on not just real estate, but just the overall economy. And maybe you could start off, tell us a little about yourself, your profession, and what you do.
Of course. So I am an attorney licensed in Massachusetts, and my specialty is real estate. And I opened my practice is located in Bedford, and I am the principal of Innamorati Law and Title. I have been a real estate conveyancing attorney since 1988. And just this past year, I have a new, partner. And so we are a two-person, all-women force, and we specialize in real estate conveyancing.
Oh, great, great.
Congratulations, that's great.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
And how long you've had your own business, Jane?
So since 1995, I basically started once I passed the bar, I moved to Massachusetts. Yeah, I'm trying to remember, sorry, 1987. So I have been practicing in Massachusetts since 1988. And originally I was with a small practice firm in Clinton, Massachusetts. And then in 1995, when our daughter was 3 years old, I decided to go out on my own. And I picked real estate because it was a field that you could actually manage and be a parent at the same time due to the sort of the flexibility surrounding real estate closings, purchase and sale contracts. And it offered itself up in a way to be flexible and still keep my hand in as an attorney.
I can obviously see how being a real estate attorney can give you the flexibility to kind of get that balance, that life-work balance that everyone's looking for.
Mm-hmm. And it worked beautifully. And now our daughter's, she's grown, she's out of school in Philadelphia working. So, but I'm still, and here I am still practicing real estate. So it becomes a way of life, and real estate attorneys will tell you that there is that built-in flexibility. Like my partner right now, she has young children, and she can do she can continue to practice, but still be a mom at the same time.
That's great. That's great. So why don't we get to what the topic is? Why don't you tell us how this market's actually impacting you, or is it having any impact on your business?
So yes, absolutely. The COVID-19 has impacted the real estate closing process. Attorneys are considered essential workers, and that is because the lenders require attorneys to close their loans. And so in that aspect, we are still conducting closings, but the way closings are conducted has changed dramatically. The first thing is there is not, because Massachusetts is an attorney state and an attorney must handle the real estate closing itself and notarize the documents, there is not a room for the way the rest of the country handles it, which is with escrow and title, and they are allowing what they call remote online notarization. That has not happened here in Massachusetts. There is a pending bill before the legislature right now that might allow that to happen during this pandemic, but it has not passed, and everything is still up in the air. So the way the real estate closings are being conducted right now are a few variety of ways. Some are conducting them via Zoom meetings, and then arrangements are made for the closing package to be couried back to the law firm, our law firm, and the documents are notarized. And then the documents are uploaded electronically to record at the registries. That is another, the fact that the registries of deeds are closed to the public is also problematic, because maybe 5 out of 10 of our closings happen at the registry of deeds. And the way the registries are set up to only accept electronic recordings for recorded land and not the land registration desk is another problem. And so things are being worked out as to how to get those documents to the registry if it is registered land to record. But luckily, in terms of recorded land, the documents can be uploaded for e-recording. So that piece of it has been, is easier to factor through. There is, the title insurance companies are stepping up and allowing us to issue GAP, what they call a GAP policy coverage, which allows that if there is a delay in the recording, so say the closing takes place on Wednesday, but for whatever reason, it's not able to be recorded till maybe the following day or the next day that the registry might be open. What do you do in that time frame between the closing and the money being dispersed and when the actual deed hits the recording desk and is recorded? So there is title insurance, it's called GAP coverage that
Right.
the title companies are allowing to be issued in that instance. So even though the closing itself is still the same paperwork and still the same documents, how it's being treated and handled for recording purposes is different. And then the other piece was.
I apologize. I just want to understand the gap insurance. Is the gap insurance actually more prevalent now, today?
Oh, yes. Yep.
Okay. So prior to this virus, it probably was a rare occurrence to have gap insurance for.
The last time that I saw gap coverage was in the early 2000s, when there was a huge boon in closings and they
Right.
couldn't record fast enough.
Gotcha.
And so that's the last time I've seen gap coverage come into play. So it's right. It was basically non-existent until just because of the COVID-19.
And who's writing that insurance anyway? Is it any carrier, or how do you?
The title companies, the title insurance companies are writing that and allowing that. They had to. Does
that increase? Sorry, Jean. Does that increase any expense from buyer, or seller gonna pay for that? Who's gonna
so no, there is no increase for that coverage.
Oh, okay.
Remarkably. So what is interesting, and just the other point that is not necessarily the closing related, but with respect to the purchase and sale contract, is now there is what, in terms of being signed with the regular contract, there's also what they call the COVID-19 rider, which is now part of the purchase and sale. And that COVID-19 rider addresses not only if there is a delay in the closing paperwork being recorded, but what is if there is a delay in the closing itself because of any unknown factors. So just from the fact that the lender can't get the documents in time, and as you know, since we are a time is of the essence state, every date in that contract is material, and so if there is a delay that is caused by the lender, the parties are not allowed to consider or call each other in default. So that COVID-19 rider is very important. It does have a time frame in it, and it's 30 days, but in any event, the parties aren't allowed to back out or call somebody else in default for non-performance just because the lender maybe couldn't get the appraisal or the paperwork, or what about the verification of employment that they require 24 hours prior to the actual paperwork being sent to the attorney. So there's all kinds of issues that have changed just because of this, the pandemic.
Has there been any change in disclosures? You know, like how you have the lead paint disclosure, but is there any like disclosures related to, let's say, I'm just thinking out loud, if you had a patient in your house or a person in your house who had the virus, does that need to be disclosed?
So that's a really interesting point, Matt, and that I have not seen that, but now that you're mentioning it, that's not a bad, that might be a good, yeah, for a real estate agent or a real estate attorney to actually add that in one of those riders that, you know, that they basically hold harmless the fact that there would be a person that has.
I'm adding value to your business already, so.
Yeah, there you go. You can draft it for me and send it over later. I'll look it over.
I'll get right on that.
You mentioned about the giving the key right after the property has been recorded. Then generally the real estate agent from the buyer side will give the key to the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Will that any chance?
So yes, and I think what yes, so typically at a closing, at least how it's been traditionally handled, and I know Ying, you've attended many, but the parties are lined up at the table. So the buyers are there, their agents are there. Oftentimes the sellers or their lawyer under power of attorney is there, and they're all signing paperwork at the same time, simultaneously. And then they are, if you're at the registry of deeds, you actually wait for the documents to be recorded and you walk back and you're on record, and there's a lot of hugs, there's the keys are handed over, and it's sort of an exciting moment. It's exciting even if you're not doing this at the registry. People are just generally excited. It's over with. They know the documents are going to be recorded electronically, and then gifts are exchanged. Oftentimes the real estate agents bring gifts, and you can't, you know, that it's a feel good. It's a feel good moment. That has definitely been removed. And maybe the states where it's just escrow and it's more, you sign things sort of electronically, but maybe not the deeds. Maybe it's not so touchy-feely, but it is here. At least that's been my experience. And it kind of saddens me to think that if this is the new normal and people like it because it's maybe more efficient, or they just don't want to come to the lawyer's office or the registry anymore, and they're going to be allowed to sign things remotely, that's a piece that's going to be missing. And I would kind of feel sad to see that go.
Yeah, same here. You know, it was a remarkable moment for both seller and the buyer. Most important for the buyer because it's their new starting of another chapter of their lives.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I would be, I'll be remiss if I hope if things go back to normal, I do hope that at least they still insist on meeting the clients at the closing table, in the registry, or at the office, because it's still important to get that feeling of the magnitude of what you just did, which was buying a house.
Right, right. Biggest transaction you'll ever make, so.
Correct.
And Jean, you mentioned like if you need to do notarization, is there any challenge for you to doing? How do you get over of that? So it will be interesting to see how the statute, if it's passed, how that works. But if in general, remote online notarization allows just what we're doing now, have a meeting and you are explaining the documents, and then the documents are sent electronically, and you're actually signing while they're signing, and you're notarizing. So it's all done digitally. And so how that transpires at the end of the day, it will be interesting, because traditionally those registries, you can't record a deed or a mortgage without wet ink. It has to be a wet signature. I mean, how do you validate it? So I know And
Some other states have
they
allowed.
have to go in front of you, right? And
Right.
some in front of
Right. So they're saying that if this happens with regards to this remote online notarization, these videos have to be kept in storage on the cloud for 10 years.
Wow.
So that's in and of itself is interesting. That's a lot of storage. And right now, our workaround is how we're personally handling this right now is we are couriering the packages, the closing packages to the buyers. The sellers are, and we are electronically sending the documents to the sellers who are then overnighting us the signed documents. And then we package it together and get it to the buyers. And then they are signing, and then we are picking it up and notarizing. So there is a face-to-face via a meeting like this, but then we have to physically get those documents, notarize them, and then upload them for recording. So it's taking twice as much time as what a typical closing normally takes, just to work around and make this happen.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you seeing in terms of volume these days? It's been same, higher, lower versus pre-virus days?
Well, pre-virus was getting very busy. And now during the virus, it's being, I mean, right now it's the end of the month. So it's very busy for this month.
That's good.
What comes next month, I don't know. However, it's a very huge uptick in refinances, and that's because the rates have dropped. And refinances are just handled so differently,
right?
Because of the 3-day right of rescission and they're kind of far out there. They're sort of, the banks get around to them when they can. They're not the purchases are the high priority. So that's so uptick right now, but I don't know. I honestly can't tell you what's going to be happening. As you know, it's 45 days out for us. So what is it going to be for the June? I have no idea.
Well, I'm still waiting for rates to get negative. That way the bank will pay me for borrowing money from them. So
that's right. It happened with the oil yesterday.
That's right.
Exactly. So I'll ask you the same question I asked Albert, Jane. What would you if you had to recommend to our viewers, what would you recommend they look for in an attorney in terms of closing on a real estate transaction?
Okay, well, what I would recommend is, I think experience matters, and I'm going to tip my own cap here. I would pick an attorney that you are actually going to be able to reach somebody that's accessible, somebody that is responsive. And even if it's via a text message, I encourage my clients, they can text me, they can email me, or they can call me, and I get back to them as soon as I can. So sort of the old, what do they call it, banker's hours, sort of have gone out the window. That's no longer the situation with most conveyancing lawyers. That's the same word for real estate. We're accessible, we're reachable, and you want somebody that if you've got a question, that you can reach.
That's totally true. I feel like, that's a professional side of you, and Albert has been very responsive. Whenever the client has questions, they always can get answer.
True.
That's
what we've sort of built our niche on. So,
and
that's what we aspire to reach.
Well, thank you very much. This is very educational. I'm sure our viewers will find it as well. And